The people it kills get up and kill.
The boat can leave now. Tell the crew.
All right, man.
What's up, guys?
We're back up in there like swimwear.
Hello, what's going on, everybody?
What's happening? We're this is the third versus stream we've done, and we got special guest Lauren Dixon from Visited by Voices, author of several books, Divide by Zero, Blue Ill, and does a lot of stuff on his channel, man. We're on the Dead End Drive-In on his channel, and it's like a collaborative group of folks over there doing different things, and we got Dead Pit Radio on here, man. CK, man. What's going on? The original Horror Talk Radio from 2005, man.
Yeah. I appreciate the invite and everything. And this versus is a lot more difficult than the first one that I did with you guys.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of conflicted a little bit more to think about it, but I don't know. We'll talk about it.
And then we got Texas Hardcore in here, man. Lifelong cinephile and huge supporter, man. Devout horror fan. And you started a channel about 6 months ago, right?
Yeah, I guess it was about when I did. Yeah, it took me a while to get there, and CK can finally see my ugly mug because he always wanted me to, said, you don't need to hide or whatever he used to say to me, stuff. But
well, I'm glad that you come out of the shadows, man.
Yeah, here I am in the flesh, and stuff. And it's a pleasure to be on here with the panel of pain, of course. So I'm all good,
Hell yeah, man. It's been a long time coming, man. And I'm hoping UV can show up. I know he's got some things going on, but yeah, this ought to be an interesting one. I know we're not going to have no talking sticks or nothing like that, you know. But, so
this has been in the making for a while. Sorry, CK, go on.
No, you're fine. Before we get into, the movies and everything, though, I wanted to get your guys' take on it because Dawn of the Dead has been pretty much held hostage here in the United States. The last physical media release was in 2008. That's a long time ago, So I think it's one of those deals that a whole new generation of people could discover this movie if they would ever re-release the damn thing. I mean, I understand. We've talked to Felcher numerous times about it. He's got some weird demands, evidently, Richard Rubenstein does. But I wanted to get your guys' take on it because, I mean, hell, you have to go on eBay and spend like a fortune or get it imported or whatever. The common movie fan, it's not easy really to access and check this movie out.
Yeah, it's Rubenstein, right? Holding it down.
Now, I think like he owns the rights to Martin and the Night Flyer as well, according to Felcher.
Night Riders.
Right.
Well, the Night Flyer actually too.
Really?
Yes, that's why that one's not out either.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess he's gonna have to die before anything happens.
That's usually the way.
Well, it's kind of sad to say, but
I don't understand, man. I mean, if you own the rights to, wouldn't you actually want to make money from it?
So, as someone who has a toe dipped in entertainment rights, I can tell you that sometimes it's much more complex than it appears on the surface. If deals were made in the past that would need to still be honored, that would make it less profitable for some individuals to have something available than not. It may be a deal that the threshold to make it worth it is just higher than the amount of money that's possible to make on the open market, especially now that physical media is in decline. The real shame is that this wasn't done at a time when the physical media was so much more healthy that there would be no question, but it'd be profitable. But we do
even if you want to stream it though, it's not available like on any of those streaming platforms.
So,
they may have it on YouTube or something. I don't know, for free.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, all over the place on YouTube. But as far as like a streaming service, that's over with. Like you're not going to find it nowhere.
Which makes me think that there are deals that are still in play that would make profit sharing really counterproductive to the actual main rights holder, and that does happen. Unfortunately, a year ago, we went through basically a super fan deciding to try and untangle the knots to The Haunting of Julia, which he successfully did. But that was a passion project that took years. Something like this, the much higher bar. So unfortunately, I think it just is what it is. I think it's great to find a villain to rally against, but really,
we found him. It's him.
Well,
all of his movies that he owns, he's got the grasp on. It's not just one.
Or is it the entertainment industry's structure that has pushed him into a place where it's simply not worth it for him?
Felcher, I mean, without naming names, he pretty much let us know that he's got demands that he wants met that, nobody in the U.S. is willing. I don't know if it's a certain percentage. But all three of the properties that he owns that we know of has not had any physical media release here in the U.S. in over a decade.
Damn.
It was kind of like that in the UK for a while as well, up until recently, because the only version you could get was the old Arrow.
Yeah.
The one I got. And this went out of print as well.
This is the one I have, the Second Sight.
Right.
Yeah, until that came out, that kind of changed everything.
It's interesting
that
I think there's different ownership over in the UK for Dawn of the Dead, but for Martin, it's still Rubenstein. So he struck a deal with Second Sight for Martin. So I don't know.
So Alfa Romero's
he's my villain. I still blame him.
I know Alfa Romero would. I know he knows everything, Don and Romero. So. He said Rubenstein reportedly wants a 7-figure package deal for Don and Martin. That's the rumors I've heard. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a question of whether he needs it to be that high in order to make any money or not. Because it depends. I mean, none of us were in the rooms back in the day when the distribution deals were set up. Right. It might just be again, the ghost of some really bad negotiations. It's easy for us to say because we just want to see these movies and own these movies, right?
Yeah, it's weird though because like Anchor Bay, man, how many different editions did they have of Dawn of the Dead back in the day? Like it seemed like every other year they were coming out with another edition. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I just think that a whole new generation of fans could discover that movie. You know, it's happened many times over the years. So it would be, I think it would be beneficial for them to come out with the edition here in the U.S. of some sort.
Oh yeah, it'd make a ton of money for sure. But I guess we'll get into it, man. So, do y'all want to kick off the Dawn of the Dead? CK, Tex?
Sure. Are we going like by categories here? How are we doing it?
I just figured we'd go through Dawn of the Dead, and then go through Zombie. You know.
Yeah. So basically,
we don't have to do like scene by scene or nothing, but.
Yeah. So when you first got to watch it, and all that, your like early memories, and then you can touch on a few points in the film that you wanna make, and then we'd kind of do a round table thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, my history with the movie, I think I first saw it on TV. It was on like the Sundance channel or the IFC channel or something like that back in the day. I didn't, oddly enough, like I didn't grow up watching it. I think that was more Uncle Bill, which would be good if his ass would get on here. But the zombie movies and everything came probably, I was 17, 18 years old, maybe, when I was really getting into them hardcore. I saw Night of the Living Dead when I was a kid. Do recall that. And Dawn of the Dead, of course, is a continuation. And I think the whole story is Romero really didn't even initially want to do a sequel, but it was Dario Argento that kind of put him up, and he'd had a couple of movies that didn't do so well after Night of the Living Dead. Probably more than a couple, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, for me, Dawn of the Dead's more than just a zombie movie, though. It's kind of like an action adventure, like with some drama sprinkled in and everything. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my history with it. Texas, do you got, you want to talk about your history?
Yeah. I saw this probably around, I want to say probably around 82, maybe, might have been 81. I was still in high school at the time, and there were a bunch of theaters around that had started to show a lot of midnight shows, I guess, to compete with one of our main theaters that would always, have Rocky Horror on, like Saturday nights. And so some friends and we drove out to see this at a midnight show. And I mean, I guess, I've always, liked it just because of that experience I had where, everybody was just sort of, yelling things at the screen. And it was, obviously they'd probably seen it many more times than I had, but I mean, I don't know. I was just, blown away at like the carnage in the film, and just the whole audience reaction and everything. So that's why it's always been a huge staple for me, because that's how incredible it was, for me seeing it that first time at like, a midnight showing and everything. And I had previously seen like Night, of course, like on actually on MTV, they showed it one night on like Halloween, and that's how I finally had seen that at several years before. And I mean, I thought that was phenomenal. And then probably about a year or two later, after I saw Dawn, I saw Night in a theater on a double bill with Eraserhead, and that was crazy. That was really crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine that shit. Now, I remember Dawn, man, really young. I seen it on TV as well. I don't remember what channel, but for whatever reason, I love Night of Living Dead. And
yeah,
I remember like it was the first VHS I ever bought. I bought it at a fucking yard sale for like, I think $1 or some shit. And I was probably 6, 7 years old watching Night of Living Dead and repeat and shit. and I seen Dawn, and I was just like, it never connected for me. I'm not here to just rip it apart. I mean, this is a versus stream, but I'm just saying, for whatever reason, it just didn't hit for me. The comedy, the satire, I don't know. It was so different tone than Night, and I love Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead, but whatever reason, Dawn just never connected.
It's interesting too, because you're big into Italian cinema and everything, and this is kind of like a co-production.
Yeah,
with Romero and Argento, you know.
Yeah, definitely. With the Goblin score, and but it's not in the theatrical though, right? The Goblin, or no?
Some of it, yeah.
Some of it is, yeah. I guess it's trickled, but I know the Argento cut. I watched it and I watched the theatrical this time, and it's just I would go with the Argento cut.
I've seen the Argento cut once, and I was like, he just took all the fun out of it for me, you know.
Yeah,
and then even the director's cut, I like it, but I mean, to me, it's too damn long. Theatrical cut is my favorite version of the movie.
Yeah, I think that's what Romero said as well. That's the one he would go with overall. So
I think for me, it's pretty much the same as Dirk. Like, so, you know, brought up, you know, watching Night of the Living Dead, you know, on BBC Two in the UK. That was shown regular, you know, on the weekends. Absolutely loved it. Day of the Dead is probably one of, you know, up until a certain point, probably my favorite zombie film of all time. I was definitely in the top, you know, 2 or 3. And I just couldn't understand when I did finally get to Dawn, hey, like, it just didn't connect. It's just so slow. It's boring. I know we'll come on to like some of the main points of the film and that. But yeah, to have, you know, 2 such really good films either side, and then to watch this was kind of a real disappointment for me. And I still go back, and it's one of those films that I'll give a go every year or 2. And I'll keep thinking to myself, this is going to be the time it's going to click. And it just never does. And I've got to the point now, and this is the first time I've probably seen it in 3 or 4 years. And no, it's exactly the same. I even watched the Argento cut because I'm a big Argento fan. Did like the score, you know, I gotta be honest, I did like the score a little bit. But if you're talking kind of a knockoff really to this, would be Hell of the Living Dead by Bruno Mattei, where you've even got like the same.
That's a classic right there too. We should have had it a
and
three-way dance.
They even pinched the score. You know, they even pinched, you know, the score from Goblin. And I mean, I find that highly entertaining compared to this. But yeah, that's kind of how
you just like where they're shooting the kid over and over again, the zombie kid.
Who doesn't?
Right. Yeah. So, Lorne, what's your early thoughts?
So I have a weird history with Dawn of the Dead, and I have a even weirder perspective on the film now. As a kid, we didn't have a VCR until my sister and I could save up half the money to buy it. VCRs were new on the market. I'm old, yes. So we did a lot of odd jobs. She babysat. I mowed a lot of lawns. I was young. She was young. But we had to save up. The goal my parents set, because they were not buying this machine otherwise, was we had to come up with half the price. And the only price guide we had was the Sears catalog. So we saved and saved and saved. And honestly, when we went to actually buy the unit, it was like far cheaper than what was in the catalog. So we probably could have had it 6 months earlier. So there was some frustration building. The first 2 tapes that we rented were National Lampoon's Vacation and Poltergeist. Great night, right? That's a win all the way around for everyone, especially because we were younger. National Lampoon's has some stuff in it that probably isn't appropriate for kids, but it wasn't too far out there.
Oh, yeah.
Enter the second check to the video store. Because my parents were trusting, they let me pick out a movie. So the first thing I picked out was Dawn of the Dead. We didn't get through 20 minutes of the film before it was turned off, and I was instructed that I was definitely not going to be allowed to watch this film. I don't know what the problem was at 11 or so, but my parents were not digging the idea of me watching it. So that created a rarity in my mind. Like, I wanted to see Dawn so much more. And remember what is in the beginning of that film, all the Philly suburb stuff and shooting zombies in the tenement basement. I thought that's the movie I was getting. Now, we all know that's not the rest of the movie. So I had for several years growing up this image in my head that Dawn was some kind of cherished, violent masterpiece that I needed to go near. And every time I read about the movie, That's what they were telling me. Stone cold classic, brilliant satire, pulse pounding, more gratuitous in its violence than anything else on the market. And maybe it was at the time. But a few years later, I could rent movies on my own without really worrying about my parents turning them off. And I sat down to watch Dawn of the Dead. Beginning, drew back all those memories and was feeding that hunger. And then they get on a helicopter. And I was bored for the rest of the runtime as a kid. Stone cold bored. And it wasn't that I hadn't seen the Fulci film that we're about to go to in a moment. So it's not like it was a comparison thing. I'm sorry, my experience is that Dawn of the Dead has always been a dull film. Maybe that is corrupted or polluted by the fact that my expectations were so far raised. So by all means, call me out on that. That's cool. But not only did this movie not click with me, I don't think this even rises to the level of something like Chud to me, which not only is a fun movie, but I think has better social satire.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, this movie came out at a time when censorship was finally receding in America. It had only been really around the point where Dawn of the Dead and the movie The Corruption had come out, whereas you started to see violence, impactful violence, being allowed to be on screen. And I think we were still fresh to that world. And even back then, television, the television cuts of the movies were extremely, extremely shown. And you didn't see something like Dawn of the Dead on regular television anyway, which I didn't grow up with cable. We had rabbit ears on the television. So I just think that where you come from with this film is going to inform how good you think the film is. For me, I have more problems than just my original experience, and I'm sure we'll get into them because I know I'm monopolizing time right now and everyone's group like absolutely frowning.
No, carry on, man. I love
My
this.
feelings on this film are pretty strongly against the grain. I've just never had fun with it. Never. And by the way, Night of the Living Dead is one of my top 20 films of all time. Day of the Dead is a cherished film that I love. I think it's a flawed film, but I love it. The rest of the series we are going to choose not to talk about, but this one doesn't work for me. It never has. And I put up with a lot of shit about that, but that's my experience.
Yeah, man.
Right.
It's always made me feel weird too. I'm like, all these people love Dawn of the Dead, and I just never have. Like, I don't get it, but it is what it is.
I think part of the big
it's a lot of
reason
people's
too
number one.
is
Go on,
that Uncle Bill, it's his favorite movie ever, I think.
Yeah,
Any genre.
It's a lot of people's, and
the mall is the big thing too, which we visited the mall last month, or I did for the first time. And if you grew up around that time period, which I'm not that old, but I remember like the mid 80s malls and stuff like that was close to it. So, I'm nostalgic for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think with Dawn of the Dead, like what Romero was really doing was trying to build those four main characters. And he may have tried it for too long. Like, the middle part of the movie, it's slow. I'll give you that for sure. Yeah. Until the zombie action, gets in there towards the end. But, with me, I think one of the things growing up here is just fond memories of going to the early, 80s malls. And they did here in Eastern Kentucky. Well, we didn't have malls, but here in Kentucky, they look kind of very close to that when I was a kid. So I like that aspect. And the chaos at the beginning of the movie, it's almost like you're getting smacked in that face over and over. Like, what in the hell is going on here? And he hired like paraplegics or whatever, like people with no legs or whatever. And you're like,
the first kill is from a gun, right? Like,
yeah. To be honest, I didn't rewatch Dawn of the Dead for this show because I've just seen it so many damn times anyway. But
yeah,
I can definitely understand how some people wouldn't like it. A lot of times some stuff in the movie hasn't aged well. Makeup effects, that's something that's a night and day between Zombie and Dawn of the Dead, in my opinion, which I'm sure we'll talk about that. Like the zombie effects and everything are I think that's the reason a lot of people can't get into Dawn of the Dead too.
Yeah, the blue face painted, and like he made up other faces way better. Like
yeah, there were a lot of background players that just got spray painted with like It looks like just a pale blue spray paint, pretty much.
Right.
It's almost weird because that's the type of makeup you do for a black and white film. That would look right. But that can't be the reason. So it is very disjointed. It is a very, but it's not just the makeup. The whole film has a very odd look to it. It looks more like Romero's industrial films than Night or Day does. I mean, not Day has no depth of field. That's always been the knock on that film, and that's true. But he was going for a claustrophobic film, so I guess that's fine. Night is a handsome production that was mirrored in bad transfers for years, but now we can look at that film and see that it's a gorgeous film. Dawn is kind of the ugliest of that trilogy by a mile, I think, anyway.
I always like the look of it, though, for some reason. I don't know. Like Shivers looks almost the same. Like,
yeah, I dig
Cronenberg
Shivers.
movie.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
They look like they were shot the same damn day or something almost, but
they do look a lot alike.
I like that aspect of it though for some reason.
See, to me, something Shivers looks more like if a daytime soap opera from that era went really, really, really askew, and that feels like a thing. This just feels like it's ugly to me. And I mean, it's just, again, there's no right or wrong here. It's opinions.
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, watching it last night, again, this like first time for a long time. Within 15 minutes, I was looking at the clock, and I realized, this is a 2-hour film because I watched the Argento. And I mean, it just never gets better. It's kind of slow. Don't get me wrong. And the one thing I would say, I do like the music, the Goblin score. But it just never gets going, even, and I wonder why it could be nostalgia for a lot of people, why they, highly regard this film. But in terms of the actors as well, I mean, Galen Ross, she does a pretty good job, but the others I can't really. Ken Foree and Flyboy.
I thought Ken Foree did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me.
Ken Foree don't bother me. It's
yeah.
Is it David Inge? Is that his name?
Yeah. Scott Reiner and David Inge.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems padded as well. Sorry, go on, man.
I don't think it's the actors at all. I think the actors are fine. I think they're from a generation of acting that's slowly starting to look different to us now. It's like when you watch a film from the 30s or 40s, there was an acting style at play that's no longer modern. The 60s and 70s are starting to feel like that to us now because acting is just completely different. So I think that could be off-putting to more recent people discovering this movie. I could definitely see that. I think the writing is actually, and the dialogue is at times just awful. As bad as it gets for the era. I think they're delivering it as well as possible. And there's even some moments that become iconic with dialogue, but it's more the performance than the actual words on page. I think that's very fair to say. I want to say something positive, though, about the film before everyone thinks I'm just completely hating on it, which is that it was a time in the 70s where exploitation, because all the guardrails had been taken off, a lot of stuff was coming out pushing boundaries without meaning or thought behind it. And that's not the case with Dawn. Dawn is a thoughtful exercise. Dawn is a great example of a film that needed an outside editor to come in and help shape this thing in the editing room into its final form, which I think not coincidentally is why we have so many cuts of the movie now, is we're still kind of searching for that perfect place where this story would really shine. So to me, it still just seems rough. There's certain things from its time period that can't be fixed. Blue makeup on face. I mean, you could, but who wants that? No one wants AI to fix this movie.
Oh, hell no.
No. But I think we, again, to be fair to the movie, no one had ever tried to do this on this scale. Yes, Last Man on Earth, the Price film, is probably the closest in terms of scope. But even that film ultimately is like, let's get in a house and board it up. This wanted to open up the range. It was trying to do something bigger because it wanted to feel expansive. It wanted you to make you really feel the global impact of the zombie contagion. That's all really ambitious, really cool stuff. Ultimately, it falls short for me, but I do want to say I think that's one of the reasons I think everyone's mind was blown when this movie came out, because nothing was tried on this scale. And I think that's fair and should be cherished.
I got to say, too, Romero's zombies are like metaphors and symbols, right? Like,
when he wants them to be. We'll get to that.
Yeah. I mean, but like in this film, particularly, it's consumerism. Like, is one of the main themes of the film. You know, what I get from it, but.
It is, and I'd like to rather revisit that when we get to Zombie, because I think Zombie 2 has a stronger thematic backbone, and it would be interesting to contrast, and without repeating ourselves too much. I don't mean to cut anyone off, but I intend to go on a rant at a certain point.
Well, at the end of the day, too, it's important to note that without Romero, there would be no like as far as these modern type zombie movies, it would go back to like the voodoo Haitian ritualistic sort of shit. So the modern zombie movie, and especially in Italy, Dawn of the Dead was a massive success.
Oh yeah,
there would be no, probably any of those Fulci zombie movies would have never been made.
Well, one thing like that Romero did do is like what he created the flesh eating zombie, right? Made the zombie a monster, whereas zombies before that were like victims. They were slaves controlled by some kind of sorcerer,
Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to be the asshole here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh, you're good.
To do that, which we always hear, you have to ignore the Plague of the Zombies from '66.
Yeah, the Hammer film.
Yeah, it never gets the credit it needs here, but it is the transitional link between I Walked with a Zombie and the Val Lewton stuff and Night of the Living Dead, and it deserves to be mentioned because while it's a film with problems as well, it is an important touchstone that probably deserves a reputation somewhat like Dawn. Because if we're going to give Dawn a pass for the things that it does fail with, I think we should do the same for Plague of the Zombies, just to be fair.
I haven't seen Plague of the Zombies. Are they flesh-eating zombies?
No, not overtly, no.
Okay, that's what I was saying though. Romero, he did start the cannibalistic flesh-eating.
I mean, that's one thing you can't argue with. That's his genre. And that whole style of movie is because of him. And especially, like I said, in Italy, the Zombie was Zombie 2, technically a sequel in Italy.
Which did piss Fulci off. And he never wanted it to be called Zombie 2. That was the producers that did that shit.
Right.
And cashing in. And Sacchetti, his script with his wife, Alyssa Brigante, was called Island of the Living Dead or Nightmare Island. I think it was Nightmare Island before that. But and he claims that he wrote it long before.
Whatever.
Yeah, because he wasn't originally. I know we're going to get into Zombie 2.
He didn't write it before Night of the Living Dead, so it really doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah. Fulci wasn't the original director either. I think it was Enzo Castellari. He'd come off doing Inglourious Bastards, and then they basically said he passed on the film. And I think Dirk said in the week, like even Umberto Lenzi was, offered the part as well.
Yeah, Umberto.
The one thing with Dawn I want to say though is I don't know if obviously the guys up top. Did you have any pacing issues with it? Because I found all that stuff when Tom Savini comes into the film near, I think it's like a hour and a half in. It's kind of padded it out a bit. All the bikers and all that, I thought they could have just been totally unnecessary and just cut that and done it like a trim 90-minute version. And it just seemed to go on and on, man. And I'm not.
It was like
Tom
what is it?
Savini's
It's a 2-hour movie, right? The theatrical version.
Yeah, 2 hours 4 minutes.
I'm always for 90 minutes or less. To me. I don't give a shit what type of movie it is. It has to be. And I agree with you. I mean, some of the pacing in Dawn of the Dead is probably not the best, especially in the middle of the movie. But I think he's trying to, character development there with those main 4 casts. If it worked or not, I don't know. But, I mean, I think you're right. If they would have cut it by at least 15, 20 minutes, I think it would have helped quite a bit.
But what's with because I'm not sure, because I haven't seen the theatrical cut for a while, but what's with the ending in the Argento cut? It's just so abrupt. It's like a non-ending, like a what the fuck type ending.
Yeah, but think about Argento endings. To a lot of
and I understand this is second part of a trilogy, obviously. Yeah. But it just stops. Nothing, it just stops in, it's weird, man. And then the credits come down and that's that.
So this ties both your previous comments actually tie together, I think, from a storytelling standpoint, which is what is the character arc for any of these characters who survived the film?
You got
Galen Ross. What is
Galen Ross.
her character? What is her character arc? Where she goes from what to what? What does she learn? What's the key moment that allows her to survive this onslaught?
She learned how to fly a helicopter.
Nah, well, apparently. But
Well,
But
yeah,
Learned how to
one
get out of there.
lesson too as well.
the point is the characters don't change. The characters are situational, and that's where I think the problem. What you're saying about whether the character development works or not. Well, the reason it's there and it's taking up real estate, but the reason it doesn't pay off is because these characters don't ultimately change. They're pretty much the same person at the end of the movie as they wanted, was maybe with a pint less of blood. So it's kind of some basic storytelling things were ignored, I think, because the visceral aspects of the film were the focus. And we like to think of it as Romero being even more thoughtful than he was, because he was thoughtful. But I think that the chops of getting the writing where it needed to be were not there. And that's why it ended up being bloated and ultimately kind of unsuccessful. I mean, I think of the characters. I think, well, Flyboy, I know because we hear the name about 1 million times. It's like Carol Ann, yeah, right? So, but what is his character? How do you describe that character without discussing his job?
I don't know really how you would describe him.
And that's kind of the problem.
He's kind of a non-character for me.
You got these great actors, and I do mean great actors, but they just don't have the material to work with. If they had characters to really dig into, that'd be a thing. There's the love triangle thing kind of lightly there, which kind of works, kind of doesn't. But do we show up for a horror movie for love triangles? No. So I feel like for all the good things Dawn did for the genre, and it did a ton of them, the movie itself to me is kind of just a mess.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tex, man?
As far as like the pacing, I think, as far as like the Savini stuff, I think when it goes into that deal where they're swinging around, throwing the pies and that whole kind of comical bit, they could have trimmed that a little bit, because that's the, I mean, the only problem that I have with it, now looking back at it is that's all. I don't want to say redundant, but it's just, I don't know. I guess it was supposed to give just a bit of a little lightheartedness to the film because you had all this stuff going on and it's like, okay, let's throw in this like kind of humor bit and then get back to the, where we're going. And that's kind of, to me, like the only drawback that I have on that. But one thing I wanted to say, because you mentioned Last Man on Earth, where do you think like Omega Man fits in? Because I think that kind of has something to kind of, I'd almost say not like a precursor, but it's something that's there that could be, kind of up to the story of, people from the underground and things like that sort of thing.
Well, one thing you got to remember is like On the Beach was a big novel contemporarily. That kind of like surviving the doomsday thing was definitely in the ether, right? There was a lot of stories being told. And I agree. Omega Man, which I always say is, it's the hippie vampires take over the earth. It's an interesting film because I don't think anyone loves Omega Man. I don't think there's many people who would say it's their favorite film, but it really does look forward to a lot of what's coming, whether you're talking Dawn of the Dead or Mad Max 2. I mean, there's a lot in there in its embryonic form. It's one of those, again, it's kind of like Dawn of the Dead in the respect that it's one of those films I think is very important without necessarily being as great as its reputation. In that case, its reputation is pretty damaged anyway, but everyone knows what Omega Man is, probably more than Last Man on Earth, right?
Yeah, but
especially with the Will Smith remake, I Am Legend.
Okay, can we just, if they're making a sequel, and I got to say this, if they don't get the right ending right the fourth fucking time, I have a problem. The novel's pretty clear about this, okay? The title means something. Can we do that for once? Can we make Richard Matheson proud once?
It's coming out today. There's no chance.
you're probably
2024 mainstream movies are they're not going to get anything right nowadays.
Somehow it's going to get worse.
Right. Well,
but at the end of the day, you guys are not fans of Dawn of the Dead. I like both movies.
Right. That's what I was saying. I was like, it's probably going to be kind of a disadvantage because we strongly.
And I understand the points and everything, but do each of you guys understand why it's such a popular movie?
I do.
Yeah.
I get it.
Romero is like one of those rare occurrence. He's got his own museum at that mall now. They celebrate his career every year in Pittsburgh. So there's definitely a gigantic fan base for Dawn of the Dead still to this day.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And that's what I've always wondered, like why it's never clicked for me. And I've watched it. Shit, I know at least 5-6 times. It's just never. I keep thinking it's going to hit, and it don't. So for whatever reason, it don't work for me. But I do get it, and I understand it's an important film for the horror genre. But
and we're in a massive minority as well, because universally it's loved by a lot of people. But yeah, you wouldn't have got Zombie 2, so there's that. There certainly wouldn't maybe not have got all The Beyond and Haste by the Cemetery, or whatever you would call that, a zombie film. I don't know. City of the Living Dead for sure.
Yeah,
so it's an important film.
Or 480 seasons of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
Yeah, that's
so maybe we shouldn't have had Dawn. I don't know.
Yeah,
you got
maybe
Dawn of the Dead remake. I mean,
I love the remake.
I did.
I like the remake. I like the remake, but
not a perfect film either. But
I watched it
painless.
one time. I didn't hate it, but I was like, whatever. It's like the Amityville Horror remake. It's okay, but I'll never watch it again.
Yeah, I can't stand that one. Amityville
Well, you can
Horror.
get it in 4K now, Dirk. You might want to rewatch it. Check it out.
I don't think I need to see Ryan Reynolds sweat in 4K.
Yeah, right.
That's not an appeal to me.
Or chopping wood.
But like
that's literally all I remember about the film, and that they added some weird Native American graveyard plot to it.
Let's combine Pet
I don't
Cemetery.
remember it at all, to be honest with you.
Oh, there's all this moment of exposition that goes on like 10 minutes where they throw every possible reason the house is haunted at you, and you're like, okay.
That was just during a time period where they were like the studios had a list of shit they were checking off. The Omen, Amityville, Dawn of the Dead.
Well, copyright law had changed, and now derivative rights were in a different place. And so if they didn't make a new movie to license forever off of, they were going to lose a lot of money. So especially in the horror genre, it was prime. You can make these things cheap relatively and keep your rights forever until another 35 years until you have to remake it again. Unfortunately, it's all
35 years now. It's like 5 years maybe.
Well, yeah, but that's because everyone's licensed off the original license owners because they're all ancient, right? They're all at the end of their life. So they give them like 5-7 years.
How many times have they remade the Spider-Man movies? I've lost track.
More times than I'll ever actually watch.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not into the superhero thing, but it seems like every other year there's a Spider-Man movie that's out.
People keep buying the tickets.
So people in the chat are like asking to get Alfa Romeo on, if he's up for it. I don't know if Dirk can send a link out there, because he's just a die-hard Romero fan. I think he would bring something cool, to the conversation as well. So just let us know in the chat.
Let us know, man, if you want to come on.
I'm reading some of the chat messages, and it's kind of in between to what people like and dislike. It's not as close as it's closer than I thought it would be. So I thought it would be just constantly all Dawn.
Well, I think if you had another movie versus Dawn of the Dead that was not really that well known, and I mean they're equally loved to me. I mean,
yeah, it's hard to beat Zombie. I mean, like
Zombie is a different sort of movie though. I think
completely different. Yeah, in every way, it goes back to the old way. Like, so there's a letter. So Argento got pissed off because it was called Zombie 2. So he took them to court, and then they lost because the judge said, well, zombie's a generic word. Like you can't. So there was no copyright laws on that. So he Fulci wrote Argento a letter and said, look, he gave him a letter with 12 films that came before I walked with a zombie. And he said, Dario Argento doesn't own zombies. Haiti and Cuba does, you know. So like that's where the feud started between Fulci and Argento. But
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I think the argument is well regarded that they were honestly trying to get the Dawn of the Dead audience directly over into their.
yeah, the producers
Remakes.
definitely were.
Well,
So, I mean-
quick. It was quickly made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's director for hire.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, this is his first horror film.
This was definitely an attempt to cash in on a more successful property.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in Italy, it turned out to kind of work. But I mean, I refuse to think that you can't make a better piece of art simply because something came before you. You know, so I don't like marketing being as deceptive as perhaps Zombie 2's marketing was, but beyond that, I have no problem. Whatever. We need to see more art, not less.
Well, that's the beauty of this film, though, because it did, yeah, you know, he just basically come on by chance, you know. Fulci, I think, was struggling money-wise. It's been well documented.
Mhm.
So he agreed, you know, to do this. And it's, you know, when you think about the preparation was probably non-existent. And to come up with such a good, you know, well-paced, I don't know, to me, it's kind of a masterpiece. I think it kind of saved the Italian horror industry at the time because they were going through a really bad slump, and this kind of helped that, you know, get back into like overdrive with all the Fulci films to come. And I know it went to shit then later on in the 80s, but you know that it could have happened a lot, you know, earlier. But yeah,
Hold on, I don't mean to interrupt you, Darren.
no, go on, Dirk. Yeah, go on.
Alpha, I'm letting Alpha Romero know I threw the link in the chat if he wants to come on.
Yeah, which kind of makes me think, you know, rather than getting the Zombie straight away, I'd basically get Alpha Romero on and get his take on Dawn first, and then we can kind of go into it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to go through some of the comments, Dirk.
Yeah, I can. Let's see. The mayor says, excuse me, y'all. To quote someone's name we don't mention anymore, Dawn and Zombie are two totally different types of films. It's apples and oranges. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it really is.
I don't know, man. Like, you know.
Only thing that I want to mention about that Who Shall Not Be Named is that you know, we're throwing smoke screens. We're throwing smoke screens up, so just beware.
Yeah. Well. But anyway.
But Dirk or Darren or you know, I mean, have you checked Dawn of the Dead out with a commentary, like a cast commentary, to maybe get some more behind the scenes on it? Have you? Because I think the only one with the cast commentary is the Argento cut. If it's on the,
I haven't watched the commentary, to be honest. I've watched some of the special features. I've seen some of that stuff, but
I did do the Alan Jones, Stephen Thrower commentary on the UK, and they're highly, you know, they know everything about that film. And that's probably one of the best ways, I think, to actually watch this if I ever go back. Is probably through a commentary. But I'll be interested in doing a cast commentary.
What's going on, man?
Hey, man.
I've had all I can stands. I can't stands no more. What the fuck are y'all talking about?
Oh, man.
Come on now. First of all.
Well, you know, I called it, you know, there's a reason I call it Yawn of the Dead. So every time I put it on, I fall asleep. I got to wake up, rewind the shit, you know, but, you know.
Look, I get it's a longer movie. There's a story being told. There's a point to be told here. Character development for once. What's the guy here up here in the corner? What's his name?
Lorne.
Yep.
What is? I'm sorry.
Lorne.
Lord, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Well, I was doing all right until I started listening to this nonsense going on here. But by God, I'm trying to enjoy my Sunday off. You know, it's quiet. Kid ain't here. And I tune into Dirk's channel, and you guys are just shitting all over my movie. Come on.
Yeah.
So character development. He was making a point about character development. What's the arc of all these characters? First and foremost, Flyboy. You mentioned Flyboy. The Steven character is probably the most profound, like, obvious arc throughout because he starts off, he's a helicopter pilot. He's a little unsure of himself. If you notice through the first 35 minutes of the movie, everything's super serious. He's trying to fight back. He's trying to fit in with the 2 SWAT guys. He's trying to, protect his woman. But he's so uptight that he fucks up everything he does. He just makes all the wrong moves, all the wrong decisions. By the time he gets to the mall and he hooks back up with Peter and Roger in the J.C. Penney's, and there's that moment there where they're trying to draw the attention of the zombies. And there's that moment where they're banging on the glass and making all the noise, and you see this relief come over him where it's like, okay, I finally did good. I finally made the right. I'm finally one of the boys, and you see him starting to have fun with it. So through that, you go from there. He starts to fit in. He starts making the right decisions and all that. And by the end of the movie, he becomes so enamored with the mall, as the rest of the characters do, that's his fatal flaw, that he starts fighting to keep the mall instead of fighting for survival, which is the original point of what they were supposed to be doing originally. You got Francine, you got Franny, her character. At first, she's scared.
Well, see, you explaining that,
okay.
Like, it sounds good, but I'm not.
It doesn't inform the story.
Like when I watch the film, I'm not communicated that.
Character development needs to inform the story on an actual.
Well, no, George is not. It's a very. I will agree that it's a very unorthodox way of character development. That George
but you could do that about anything. You could say that anything is unorthodox to excuse anything.
But I'm not excusing it. I'm pointing out. I've seen this movie hundreds of times at this point. If you watch, the character development is in the story. It's not just your typical. Every movie now it's like, oh, well, I grew up a poor black boy from the South. Now I have to overcome that to become the hero in the end. And it's just like, it's not that pronounced. It shouldn't be that pronounced. It's a little more subtle than that. It should be more subtle than that. Roger's perfect example of a character development where at first he's in control, like he's, but by the end he starts to lose his shit. And that's his fatal flaw, puts him in a bad situation. Peter's kind of the only character throughout the whole movie that kind of keeps his shit together. But even by the end of it, so at the beginning of the movie, when they're in the tenement and he's shooting the zombies in the basement, and he's executing the zombies in the basement, it's a painful experience for him because we have to keep in mind that these are still people. The zombies are still people. That was the whole point that George wanted to come across, is that they are still us. In some way, even though they are dead, they're reanimated corpses, whatever. These characters in their mind, they're still people. Peter's struggling with this.
And they're still window shopping, right? I guess, in the mall.
What do you mean by that?
No, I'm just saying, like, they're still people. They're still us.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea. They're still that.
But it's got the goofy... I don't know. It just don't land for me. The goofiness, like I don't know.
George had a very goofy sense of humor. George is, I mean, even you go back to the last 2 or 3 movies that he made, it's very pronounced. Well, whether it works or not, I mean, it's up for debate. But George has always he's always incorporated his weird sense of humor into his movies. But like I said, Peter's struggling to kill the zombies at the beginning. By the end, he's just picking off the bikers, and having a good time with it. He's smiling. He's just like, fuck these guys, because he's lost all sense of like, oh, maybe this is, maybe we can save this. It's like, no, we're killing each other. And that's another thing people forget too in these movies, is that people killing people is still wrong.
I can see Roger, actually, now that we're talking about this, so I can see his arc a little bit because he's so cocky, and that gets him fucked off, really.
Right. And, Fran learns to fly the helicopter. That's a perfect example of, she grows to become a useful member of the team, whereas by the end she's got, the bullets.
What was the deal with her not wanting to get married? Like, why not? Yeah.
My theory is the idea of... So the two characters there, Flyboy and Fran, the way I interpret it is they're not a literal couple. I feel like Fran and him probably hooked up one night. She got knocked up with his baby. He wants to, dedicate himself to her. He wants to, but she's still like not, because if you look at their relationship at that movie and you watch the way that they interact, she's still just kind of like, I'm not in love with this guy, whereas he is in love with her. So it's kind of this weird back and forth between their relationship.
And then they still have sex, and then they look bored as shit afterwards. And it's like
well,
when I see that scene, I see that scene, that's how I feel when I'm watching the movie.
That's pretty realistic.
That's the way it goes. That's
But they're dull characters for me, all of them.
I see.
I think the characters in Zombie are pretty much all dull.
Yeah, you want to talk about some dull ass characters, bad dialogue.
I cheered so loud when that fucking little girl with the perm and shit gets her.
Oh boy, she's not.
Oh
she's
my
like
god,
the worst. She wasn't even an actress though.
And
there's a story about her.
Yeah.
Tisa Farrow in that
Farrow.
movie.
What else did she do?
She did
Panther. What was that one?
Hold on,
She did like one other movie outside of that.
Anthrophagus, right?
She fucking hid for 40 years or whatever.
Anthrophagus, yeah.
Strange Shadows in an Empty Room. That's a pretty good job.
Yeah, Blazing Magnum.
But I'm not here to shit on Zombie. Zombie is one of my all-time favorite movies too. So, but I just had to come on and defend some Dawn of the Dead.
He's not here. It's good that you got such a strong opinion. To balance it out.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason that the movie connects with you and the characters connect with you, that's great.
I think that's the biggest selling point of the movie to me, though, is that the characters
and no one can
actually care about them.
Of course, because that's your experience with the movie. But for me, and I think for the top row here, we didn't connect with the characters, and you can't dismiss that. So what you're saying is subtle. I don't think it's very subtle. I think that's very mechanical. I think having someone be able to fly the helicopter at the end of the film was just as much a point from a plot standpoint and necessity as it was for any actual organic character growth. And I think, honestly, if you divide this into a 3-act structure, it is entirely mechanical. It's just not an elegantly written film at all. And you can say call that subtle if you want, but I mean, I'm sorry, a guy goes from being afraid to shoot zombies to being okay to killing humans. That's a change in character, I suppose. I don't see that as an arc.
I don't. What do you civilization in general?
Okay, that's fine, but it's not a character arc. And a character arc,
sure it is.
It's not.
Sure it is. What is a character arc to you?
A character arc is
I was a crippled boy growing up, and I had to learn how to what Forrest Gump. What do you? He becomes.
So a character arc is a character who starts at a position. There is an obstacle that is holding them back, or there is a social situation that prevents them from succeeding. They overcome whatever personally, internally is the struggle, and that helps to overcome whatever the actual object in their way in the story is. That's a very basic way of it. It's a lot more detailed than that. I don't see any of these characters actually overcoming anything. They survive. And if you're going to say that is enough, that's fine. You can call that subtle if you want. But the characters don't fundamentally change in order to overcome any adversity. They just don't.
To me, I don't give a fuck about shit like that. That's just me. Like I don't look I look at a movie to be entertained.
Sure,
I don't look back and say, "Oh, did this character develop enough?"
No, but the more
cares? Who gives a shit?
But you do. So Ash Williams in the Evil Dead films, you care about
reading way too much into it, in my opinion.
No, I'm not. Whether we like it or not, good storytelling is important to whether you enjoy a film or not. Otherwise, we'd just be watching car crash videos.
Okay, so there's good storytelling in Zombie. I want to hear about this.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's perfect by any means. Believe me, there. But I don't think. I think my opinion is that you're overselling these characters pretty severely. And I mean, I think if you look at films outside the genre in the same 2 years around the release of Dawn of the Dead characters barely register. Barely. to any
So,
serious film.
okay, so what do you attribute the success of that movie and why it's still playing theaters today?
Well, so I went over this at the
If it
beginning.
was just a hoot and a gore fest and all that stuff,
I
then
did
it would
not
just
say
be.
that.
No, I'm just saying, like, if that's all it was, which is the reputation that it gets a lot of the time from people. It's like, oh, it's all this gore and all this
I've
stuff.
never heard that. I have never
That's
heard that as a criticism of this film. If
no, not a
anything,
criticism, but that's really what people point to. It's like, oh, Dawn of the Dead kind of started the slasher craze in the U.S. because it was Tom Savini. It was first time you're seeing,
It did get Savini's
splatter
name
and
out there, that's for
gore and
sure.
all that. Like that's what is kind of good. But when it comes down to storytelling and whether or not you actually give a shit about your main four characters, that's the thing that I think is registered with people throughout the years. It may not register with you, and that's fine. But I think that's the key thing. That's why people still go back to this movie to this day. That's why people still travel all over the world to visit the mall just to be like, oh, that's where Peter did this, or that's where Roger did this. You know,
and
it's like
I have no desire to dissuade those people from their love of this film at all. I think the world is better with things that people love in it. Period. If you want, I mean, I thought I was invited on for my opinion, but apparently, I mean, I don't think there's a
no,
right
I'm
wrong
I'm, I'm
opinion.
shutting that shit down. No, I'm joking.
I don't think there's a
I'm
right or
joking,
wrong
man.
opinion. If you love the film, you love the film.
But I thought this was a versus show,
Objectively.
so we need some debate
Well,
going on here. I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm not dismissing your
well,
opinion.
but
You're
I'm
obviously
not
a very
I'm not gonna
well-read, very intelligent film viewer. I totally
I'm
do with
not going
that.
to I'm not going to pretend I hate the film more than I do. I'm not going to also say that I like it any more than that was just for the cause of having a great debate. I'm not going to do that. The film lives where it lives in my mind.
And that's fine. I'm not on here to tell you that you're wrong. I'm just here to kind of to give some defense because it seemed like we have a whole panel of people here who are not fans. I knew Dirk was not a fan of Dawn of the Dead, Yawn of the Dead, and son of a bitch.
It just never has landed for me.
And that's
man.
fine. That's totally cool. But
Yeah.
I just
Which blows like I'm echoing what I said earlier, but it just blows my mind that Night of the Living Dead I love so much, and Dave I like it a lot.
I think everybody has like a film that's highly regarded that they're not fans of. I mean, that's not that unusual.
This isn't even my biggest one.
Right.
Yeah.
As people know.
Yeah.
That's why I find
I
it
could
hard to
mention several
believe
that people would probably be like, "What the,"
if you're just like coming in and you're watching all three of the trilogy, I kind of find it hard to realize that George even, made the second one compared to the other two. I know I made that point earlier. It kind of blows my mind out. Yeah, it doesn't, you've got two absolute classics either side. And like, I don't know, it's good to hear like, Alpha Romero's like,
well, you got to keep in mind too with Dawn of the Dead, George was going for this. He was like, we're going to have bikers driving through this mall. We're going to be shooting in a real mall. We're going to be doing all of this, but our budget is this. So to me, Dawn of the Dead is a punk rock horror film. Like it's flawed, no doubt. And I think the flaws are some of the most charming aspects of the movie, in my opinion, just to me.
I can't deny the numbers. I mean, $640,000 budget and made what, $66 million. So
right. Yeah, I mean, it's George was dreaming big, and I mean, he edited that film. I mean, he got so sick after making that movie because he worked himself half to. I mean, you look at him at the beginning of that shoot to the end, and it looked like he aged 20 years. But he was just determined to make his vision, and I think that's another thing that really resonates with I think a lot of people.
Now, I got to ask y'all this though. So, Gianetto De Rossi. His effects versus Savini's effects. I mean, you got to give it to Zombie, right? You got to give it to De Rossi.
I love the look of the zombies in Zombie.
Yeah.
But I think what I put in the chat earlier, but I think the thing that works for like the blue face zombie, which is off-putting to a lot of people, they're like, oh, this looks corny. But the thing that works for me is that the zombie is still, they're not overly done. Like now you look at zombie movies and you couldn't pick any of them out of a lineup. Whereas you go back, you watch Dawn of the Dead, it's like, yeah, they're the blue face zombie, but you can individually pick them out.
Wasn't that a lighting thing too? Like it was supposed to be like a pale gray or whatever, but it showed up I guess with the lighting and all that is like a
Yeah, I
it's
heard
'cause
color.
with that
Savini
mall,
speak
they
about
just
that.
lit that mall to death. Like they just shot light all over that mall just to
Again,
light
that
that
would
big ass area.
if you watch the film in black and white, I think the zombie makeup looks spot on. That's the irony. So
Probably.
But the damn the Rossi though, like it's so like so these zombies and Zombie 2, a lot of them you can see the differences between them. Like some of them are conquistador zombies that are like 400 years old coming out of the ground and shit.
Right.
Where other ones are had just turned. So you see the differences. And like I was saying with Romero's is more metaphors and symbols, I feel like, versus Fulci's is pure fucking monsters. Like
Yeah, Fulci's are definitely monsters, whereas the zombies in Dawn, I feel, are more like lost souls. Like you can see it in their eyes. They're just like people that are just like confused as to like, why am I still here? What am I doing here? Whereas Fulci's are definitely just more like scary monster type creatures. I don't know.
And I mean, just like knowing how DeRossi did all that, he did it with clay and dirt
Mud.
and shit, like
Mud and blood, baby.
Yeah. Tomato
Worms.
sauce.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, sometimes, I mean, that looks better, really. I mean, they had natural light because a lot of this was shot outside, so that helped
Right.
in their favor. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt those zombies look better in Zombie.
and that goes kind of back to what we were talking about at the beginning. I mean, Zombie 2 has extremely wide palette of filmmaking techniques being used, whereas Dawn of the Dead just doesn't. It's a much flatter film. And I think that it was probably second unit, so it probably wasn't even Fulci all the time, but he really understood how to shoot for special effects. They sell in every scene. Which is good because that's what he made his career on. It's only later on people looked behind the curtain and kind of saw that he was doing some other things that were really very cool too. But at least initially, I can remember in the early 80s, the reputation of Lucio Fulci was, oh, it's the gore guy. And that's never completely left him. But I think people are now kind of admiring the moods and atmosphere, the subtle Lovecraftian nature to especially the Gates of Hell trilogy, which pretty substantial. And I think like John Carpenter used to get that kind of credit for the Fog or Prince of Darkness of having a little bit more mood and atmosphere.
I just hate
film. But Fulci didn't have that at first, but now he has it.
I just hate Fulci's not as recognized as Romero though, because I know he's known for the horror, but Fulci did so many other genres of film.
Well, what's funny is like Fulci is way more famous today than he was when he was alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think shortly before he passed away, he was at like a Fangoria Weekend of Horrors
I was
convention.
supposed to be there. There was a snowstorm.
And like, yeah, I think it may have been partially due to that snowstorm, but yeah, that I talked to somebody that was there and it was like, well, nobody really cared. Just sad.
That's
I mean,
sad.
you can see the footage of that on
crazy.
the Laserdisc to Zombie. I don't know why it's never imported over to anything, but the quality's not great. But you can see his panel appearance, and he actually starts to cry because people cheer him, and he didn't think there was any fan base in America. So,
didn't he? He was having diabetic issues, obviously, at the time. I think they had to carry him over the snow just to get him to the venue,
and refusing to take his medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was pretty sick for the last 4 or 5 years of his life.
Yeah, from Door to Silence onward, basically, appropriately named film.
Right,
But
and then he was going to go on and do Wax Mask as well, which
with Argento, but that was Savati. Is that his name?
Sergio Civiletti. Yeah,
Civiletti. I mean,
yeah,
it's not a great film either.
But at least they got, they made it up in the end, him and Argento. And I think Argento actually paid for his funeral costs and all that because he died basically penniless, which is very sad. He's had such a really harrowing life. Actually, he lost his wife. I think he lost his daughter as well at some point.
Well,
one of his daughters,
because
But so Sacchetti claims that he got his inspiration from old horror comics for writing Zombie 2. I think it's Tex Weiler in The Land of the Living Dead. There's some old comic. him and his wife wrote. He was going through a hard time. His dad had died, so it was even harder for him to write. And but Sacchetti claims, like, man, he like Lucio didn't even have to really change anything from his script, but he gives all the credit to Zombie for bringing horror to Italy, like a little industry. And he even said, like, Argento couldn't handle the international industry like Fulci did.
Well, it's interesting because Zombie, actually, most of the Fulci films, all of the Fulvia films, they didn't play wide in America. They played your grindhouses, they played some drive-ins, they played some offbeat screens. But they weren't in every multiplex. Not that there weren't very many multiplexes at that time, but your little suburban theater probably wasn't showing it. Okay, they were too busy showing Smokey and the Bandit or whatever the fuck they had that week. They weren't showing a Lucio Fulci movie. But what happened is these movies had extremely long stays at these theaters because a grindhouse used to have the ability to contract week to week. And even sometimes midweek, they'd change out a film that wasn't performing. And the Fulci films, especially the core ones, Zombie to City of the Living Dead, House by the Cemetery, New York Ripper, these films played at these theaters for, in some cases, months. And what it did is it had this incredible ability to get a reputation for these films way bigger than their footprint on the landscape. And Fulci's reputation, the reason we know his name, but we don't necessarily know a lot of other directors who are also worthy of our attention's name from Italy or from Germany or from Spain or from France, is because of the staying power of these movies. It was hard to wrench Zombie or House by the Cemetery or The Beyond especially off of a screen once it was on, because it kept making money. People were returning 2 and 3 times because it was also the only game in town. If you were in New York, you had maybe 2 theaters playing the Fulci film that was out at that moment. So you kept going back because you might never see this movie again. Television wasn't going to play him. Not many people had cable in 1979, 1980. It was not common. Cable was expensive, rare, and they probably didn't run it down your street unless you lived in a major metro area. There was no VHS release because there was basically no VHS. Reality is, if you wanted to see it and you loved it, you probably did go to a second showing if it was still playing 3 weeks later. So when you look at the numbers that this movie did internationally, you realize it did it on against all odds. Because Dawn of the Dead actually did have a wide release, although it was a somewhat contained wide release. Zombie did it against all odds. You said before you thought Dawn of the Dead is a punk rock film. Well, I think Zombie might be even more of a punk rock film. It definitely fought up a bigger mountain.
Visually speaking, holy shit, you know.
I think the poster did a lot to sell people in that movie too, because that's a straight out there. Yeah. I had that poster for years right beside of my bed. And when I was dating my wife,
I was gonna say that, not great for dating, probably.
When I was dating, when she was like, "Can you please just take that poster down, please?" So I replaced it with a Hills Have Eyes poster.
Oh yeah,
that's better. Michael Berryman is better to look at than.
What do you like? You got to give. I think you got to give Zombie 2 the suspense too, though. I think the suspense is stronger, especially. I know the eye splinter scene, which
he tried to. I don't think Dawn of the Dead tried to be scary though. Really, did it? I mean,
not really. Like
Zombie for sure did.
I guess the only suspense would be with Roger, right? When he's trying to get back into the 18-wheeler or whatever.
Yeah.
I think there's moments, and I think it's hard to look back on that time from today's eyes. I think it was probably thought of as scary at the time because there wasn't much like it. And again, that's something that should be shared, like screams from the hilltops, whether you like or hate Dawn of the Dead. There was really not much like it out there.
Well, to me, I've never thought zombies as a creature were scary in general. I've never got that. I think the scarier aspect of a zombie movie to me is the idea that the world is coming to an end. Everything is being taken over. Like, that's the scary aspect to me. Like, the scarier parts to Dawn of the Dead to me are when they're sitting there watching, Dr. Rausch, and they're, the TV stations are falling apart, and like everything that
chaos.
The chaos of the world crumbling around. But so I always thought that the zombies in Fulci's Zombie were gory and they looked cool and all that, but I was never like, oh, these are scary. Like, and the suspense scenes, like the zombie fighting the shark. Like, I know people like to bring that up all the time, and I think it just looks so goofy. Like so much,
really?
where the zombies
shark-
just like, hey,
Wow.
let's.
The shark is all
come
drugged
on.
up, man. It's feeling pretty
Yeah, there's
good.
that shark ain't got no teeth. Like, it's just like, come on now.
But I mean, if you're not really, if you see it for the first time, you don't notice all that. Like,
Even the first time I saw it, I was just like, well, this is kind of goofy, but yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a cool
appreciate what he
idea.
was going for with that.
Yeah,
though.
but
It's-
when the zombies like standing there like trying to like, oh come
like,
on, shark.
he's like fucking hugging the shark at one point.
Yeah,
or something.
exactly.
Come on.
Like half of his
But I
makeup
mean,
is falling
you
off.
know, can
and
you
it's
imagine
like,
hugging a
well,
shark? I mean, come on.
Well, that was was that the shark trainer or something like that?
It was
Yeah.
Had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it
I would
looked like.
imagine they couldn't find an actor that would.
No,
fucking
they
do that.
initially did, and then he refused on the day of.
But from what I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but
Understandably.
I was listening to recent interviews and they were saying that guy was a shark handler,
Mhm.
wrangler, and they actually found that shark.
Mhm.
So that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like they didn't bring that shark
That's
to
not a
where
cool
they,
shark,
you know,
no.
he had
It
to
was
go
just-
find it, bring it out and shit.
The,
Like,
the guy was called
That's-
Romano Bravo, and
Yeah.
he did a lot of like I think he did Deep Blood with D'Amato. I think he did a lot of like
he did a shark
Italian
movie
sort
of his
stuff,
own, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think
he
it's
was
about
kind of well
audacity.
regarded.
I think that scene in particular is about audacity. Like, if you were to tell someone in 1978, a year before this movie, hey, next year there's going to be a movie in which a topless woman swims to the bottom of the shallow ocean and gets attacked by a zombie at the bottom, but then a shark comes and the shark and the zombie fight, and this is all going to be done in camera. Even in the days of Star Wars, you would be like, yeah, you're shitting me. That ain't happening. That's not going to be in a movie. It's just purely audacious that you could do this. You could get it done. And yeah, it's stagey. It has limited camera motion. It could be more dramatic. I agree. What were you going to do? Not drug the shark? Or worse,
Just don't do that scene.
Well, it was
animatronic-
Fulci. I mean,
build an animatronic shark that looks like animatronic sharks. I kind of appreciate that as a real fucking shark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's the first thing that everybody brings up. If you ever seen the movie, everybody remembers that.
Yeah.
Right. The eye splinter scene, like I know that gets brought up a lot too. I like the fat boy zombie though. It's
Captain
very
Haggerty, man. I've got an autographed photo of him somewhere
yeah.
back in the day.
Because I mean, you know, he looks like he ate everybody on the crew.
Right.
And you kind of if you go
Kind of what you
deeper
put
back,
into it.
like when you first see the boat coming in, it kind of brings you back to like I guess you say the Demeter, Last Voyage of the Demeter, not the movie, of
No.
course.
Well,
I'd
I like
say-
the movie too, actually.
I'd
But
say Bram Stoker's Dracula, but you know.
so Dirk, you're
That makes
actually this is a great segue because so the difference between these two movies fundamentally in their approach to the material is very simple. There's two kinds of horror out there if you want to break it down this way. There's fear of the inside and fear of the outside. Where's the danger coming from? Romero's zombies come from the inside. They're our neighbors, right? It's the fear of a society around us rising up against us for arbitrary reasons that we cannot understand. A value system having changed around us, but we haven't changed. That's fundamentally what Romero's zombies are. Now, it could be in Dawn of the Dead, it's kind of consumerism. In Day of the Dead, it's a result of kind of the militarization and the Reaganization of America. But the reasons don't really matter. It's about where the fear is coming from. It's coming from within our own society. Zombie explicitly is outside our society. It's the fear of the other. And we know that in the movie opens with a boat traveling into the harbor in New York. We see the Statue of Liberty, for Christ's sake, just to underscore it.
The Twin
Well,
Towers.
What's on board? You know, the monsters are on board. It doesn't, again, you said before that these are not people, these are monsters, and that's correct. It is about that outside influence. So yes, it's exactly the Demeter. How does the movie end? On the Golden Gate or the Brooklyn Bridge, right? Whereas now they're walking literally into America. They're on the warpath. Throughout the movie, that theme just continues to ratchet up. We go outside our comfort zone and we go to a distant land where a doctor is kind of at war with a voodoo priest that we never see. We never see the other.
Yeah,
right?
you hear the music. You
It's
hear the
important
voodoo
we
music.
never see the other.
Yeah.
It reminds me of one of my favorite films from the 30s, Black Moon, but that's a whole different issue. If you haven't seen Black Moon, it just came out on Blu-ray. It's awesome. Transfer, buy it. It's an amazing film. It has Fay Wray in it. But we keep going in and we find now the zombies from a different place. It's not our local. So we're fish out of water. It's the other that's attacking us. Ultimately, though, even that the locals end up being attacked by the other, which is the conquistador zombies, which were the invading force from 200 years ago, rise up. So fundamentally, the films are approaching the issue of zombies as monsters completely differently. One is this internal, like, what has gone wrong with us argument versus, hey, the rest of the world is really scary because they don't have our values. And in that way, yeah, before you asked what, if there was a great story in Zombie, I do think there is. I mean, if we're going to give a pass again to Dawn of the Dead's shortcomings in storytelling, I think we need to be just as charitable for Zombie. I think the movie has a lot to say, even if it's saying so on a nearly or underliminal way. I'm not truly subliminal, but underliminal. Whereas it's there, it's affecting you, but you might not notice what the statement is because it's not throwing a pie in your face in a movie in a shopping mall, right? It's not that overt. But I think that Zombie does have an amazing story, and I think it resonates with people on a level that, again, is not conscious, but it's not fully subconscious either, because it's all right there. Why else would you have Conquistador Zombies Rise? Why?
Zombie people, I think it resonates with people. Fulci Zombie resonates with people because of the effects and the gore. I don't think anybody says what a great story that was. I've never heard anybody say what a great story that's so deep. Never heard that. It's always like these zombies look great. The gore is fantastic. That's what people go.
It doesn't wear out its welcome either. It's a quick movie. What is it? Right at 90 minutes or something like that.
96, I think.
So, but I don't.
But everyone mentions the two scenes, don't they? The ice splinter and the shack, and I think that's doing the whole film a misjustice.
It is.
Like Lauren said, I do agree that there is a kind of a decent storyline, and everyone talks about those scenes, and for me, I think the film as a whole is just a masterpiece. I think.
I mean, he takes the time out to show the sick people that are dying. There's flies. That shit looks disgusting.
What's the implication of that, by the way? That diseases come from the island from outside the island. Again, the movie, the themes are good. The storytelling is solid. Now, you can argue a little bit about the characters. That's a little bit tough. Is whenever a movie is translated from another language, some of the social cues that would be normal in the society you're from are going to get lost on a transplanted audience. That's going to happen. And I think it does suffer in all of Fulci's films, actually. Well, at least the good ones. Because there are bad Fulci films, even though I'm an apologist.
I think it's funny with the Aretta Gay, though, like where Fulci was so frustrated with her in particular. And treated her like shit, right?
Well, he wasn't
she wasn't an actress.
That's for sure.
She wasn't an actress, so he demanded emotion from her. She wasn't showing any emotion. He threw himself on the ground and like started eating dirt and shit. Like Fulci.
Yeah.
Like to get emotion, like showing her like what he wanted and shit. But
did he not do that?
Firing guns on the set of his film, so.
I mean, she's in the film for a reason, isn't she? And it's not her acting ability.
No.
But yeah, he was well known, wasn't he? For like you'll pick on a certain actress and if you didn't stand up to him, he kind of didn't respect you.
That's
that's
one of the best throat rip scenes you ever see, though. I got it. I mean, holy shit.
Well, I think so. I'm not trying to downplay the gore as a reason to show up to watch Zombie 2. That would be an idiotic thing to say. I'm just saying, I think that's a well-trod territory. We can talk about how great the Splinter is all day long, but I think that conversation has been had a million times. I think there's more to the film. I think there's a reason it endures. There are other films that are just as bloody, nasty, or gory out there that don't have this film's reputation, and I think it's a disservice to pretend it's just down to the special effects. I just don't think that's fair.
And even the shots at night in the Caribbean setting with the palm trees and shit, you see the zombies in the back in the dust and everything. I mean, it's beautiful.
My favorite shot in the film is of a crab walking across sand in front of a church.
Right, yeah.
Because to me, it's all there. That moment with that soundtrack and the drums in the back, it feels like a thing. I watch movies for how they make me feel, first and foremost. If I walk out of this theater having felt a way that I've never felt before in my life, or that I cannot draw on my own experience to feel, that movie is one. Even if that's not a good emotion, I'd argue the reason we react to Texas Chainsaw so well is because as a film, as a total, makes us feel the thing that you can't feel anywhere else except if you're watching that movie. And thank God it exists, right? Zombie does the same thing for me.
But what are the character arcs in Zombie?
So that's a very, very fair point.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to argue that there is a ton of hard work put into that. What I'd say is I think that you have a level of filmmaking that supplants it. I think it's a visually much more interesting film. I think the story, because it changes locale, it remains engaging. There's always some batshit thing a moment and a half away.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to do that work. My problem is, I don't suggest, by the way, that every film and every character in every film needs to have a strong character arc. I'm saying if you're going to have us watch characters go living a shopping mall for an hour while nothing happens, I'm going to need something. That's the difference between these two movies. There's no downtime for the characters in Zombie.
But you'll watch characters walk around an island for an hour and a half where nothing happens, and you're fine with it.
Where in Zombie is there 10 minutes where nothing happens, or 2 minutes when nothing happens?
I mean, that's some pretty slow parts.
After the opening scene, it's fairly slow for, 15, 20 minutes?
Well, until they get on the boat. That's fair. I mean, it's slower than what comes later. I think
I
there's
guess when
a
she's
lot of
making out and the cops catch them and shit. I mean, you know.
I mean, the scene where Richard Johnson and then his wife or whatever are arguing back and forth about, and she's just overacting her ass off. It's that kind of just like, all right, let's move on. Like, what's next? Like,
well, it's showing that she's surrounded by zombies. She wants to get the fuck out of there. She knows what's going on.
Do that. There are other ways to do that, though.
So she's,
but even like
used
the
as a point of
eye
view character.
Even the eye splinter scene, though, to me, like it's like when that's slow. Yeah. It's like at some point, like your mind maybe just pull back, like maybe fight it. I don't know, do something other than stand there and stare at. I don't know.
Well, he's pulling her. The zombie.
I get it. I get it. It's for suspense reasons, but
those are issues. She had a thing for eyeballs too. Like that was a big fetish of his.
Yeah, it was this whole thing he had. If you read there's a great book on Fulci. I have it over there, but
Beyond Terror, is it?
Beyond Terror, yes. Yeah, he discusses the fact that he always viewed the horror genre in kind of in very careful terms. You show up to watch things that you shouldn't want to see, right? So he took it as attacking people's eyes was what he was doing anyway. So he made it a physical reality in the films, which again, you don't have to think of Fulci as some brilliant filmmaker if you don't want, but there was real ideas. This is not a Bruno Mattei situation. Not at all.
And so, like when you were saying about the argument, so right there at the end of the argument, it foreshadows, it zooms in on her eyes. She's got beautiful eyes. It's foreshadowing the eye splinter scene.
I got that.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
There's a film out right now in theaters. Actually, just hit Amazon if you want to pay $20 to rent it. It's a great film. I'd wait for the price to come down. It's an Indian action film called Kill. And one of the things I love about that movie is that the endless henchmen in an action film, at that point, at a point in the movie, all get together and have a discussion about what they should do, and half of them just wanted to leave. Which is something you've never seen from your faceless henchmen in an action film, right? But it gives it this moment, right? Whereas like they actually bicker and argue because you would bicker and argue in this situation when you're basically up against Rambo on a train. That fight in Zombie 2 is that moment. Like, why the hell would anyone want to stay on this goddamn island? People are dying of disease. There's zombies. There's a sense of dread that hangs over the whole place. Why would you want to stay? If you didn't have at least one character pipe up to say, what are we doing? Let's get the hell out of here. I think people would criticize it for that. So is it a perfect scene? No, but again, translated dialogue. Are we gonna do that? Are we gonna get real angry? The performance is over the top, sure. Jeffrey Combs in Reanimator, anyone? Is that not over the fucking top? Yeah, it is, and we love it anyway.
But that was there's a difference between over the top bad and over the top good, in my opinion.
Well, again, but that's an opinion.
Right, that's what I said. In my opinion,
you're gonna have a line there. I think she's such a minor part of the film that I think it's irrelevant.
Yeah,
there's bad performances in Dawn of the
also
Dead
the
too,
abused mother from in Purple Rain.
Yeah. Well, you've seen Purple Rain, right? We're all abused because we watched Purple Rain.
Right. She's a killer in Murder Rock as well.
Not a great film.
Right, yeah.
But
Richard Johnson,
Rock, actually.
I enjoy Murder Rock, but Richard Johnson for me is the standout performance because he basically, you would expect, he's coming into this, Italian zombie film, probably doesn't even think it's ever going to be shown outside of Italy at some point, but he gives 100%, man. I think he's what carries the film. But I agree with Tisa Farrow not being a very good actress. I kind of like Ian McCulloch's performance as well.
I like
Um,
everything, but
I
I think
like
that's,
Ian.
yeah,
I think he's just a great like presence.
right.
Acting
Yeah,
aside,
yeah.
he's great in everything because he's just great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he did a slew of these around the same time as well. I think he did Zombie Holocaust, which was the same production company, and they kind of got that going straight after this one. But yeah, like, you know, I think in terms of this film, it's probably a bit of a disadvantage, like we said earlier, to the guys in the bottom row, because you guys love this film, I take it. Alfa Romero,
I do.
what would you say
Yeah.
about this film in general? Like,
I on my channel, I actually just recently did like a top 10 non-Romero zombie film. And
Right.
Zombie is probably top 5 easily, probably number 4 on that
Oh,
list for me.
okay.
Like I've always been a big fan of this. I'm not here, like I said, I'm not here to put down it, but I'm just trying to, you know, even the odds a little
Well,
bit
you're
here.
comparing.
yeah, yeah.
We're comparing the two films, so it's.
I mean, it'd be easier if it was a movie that we hated, but yeah,
Right.
Zombie is
Yeah.
like an easy, fun watch.
Like if you did Dawn of the Dead 04, I could get on here and shit on that movie.
I
for
wouldn't do
hours.
it because I wouldn't watch that movie again. I just don't want to see it.
Strange enough, we all love, like the top row all love 04 over the original.
Oh,
which is-
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that movie makes no
you
sense.
take the dead baby scene out of that film, which is just retarded. But you take that out, I think Dawn of the Dead 04 is pretty great.
But it makes no
It's-
sense. There's no reason for them to go to the mall. There's no reason for them to leave the mall. They just go to the mall. They stand.
Well,
They're there for a while and then they leave for no reason. And they're just like, let's go to an island. It's like, why? We're secure here.
Well,
Why do we
after
need
Roger
to-
Zombie too,
like-
but yeah, no, I get it. It's a different one. It's kind of like pop exploitation, like in that time period where post saw everyone wanted to have a horror movie on the market.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to defend that film wholeheartedly. I have fun with it, but I haven't watched it in probably 10 years, so maybe whatever. I want to say though, like with both these films, you know, what a great world we live in where two zombie movies, which should be a pretty similar genre, right? They should be pretty much like the slasher film, whether you love them or hate them. I think we all love them, but they're all kind of the same, much more than these two films, zombies, the two Titan of zombie films that we're talking about here.
Yeah,
They're
the Voodoo
very-
Zombie
yeah.
versus the We Don't Know Why.
What a riches to have. If you come out and you love Dawn of the Dead and you hate Zombie too, well, you know what? We're going to disagree all day long, but you know what? I'm proud that we have a genre that's this wide and vibrant, and that as fans we can have conversations about it, and we don't run out of things to talk about, because there's genres where that's not true. So, like, let's celebrate both these films existing, even if you can't stand one of them. And I wouldn't go that far in my case. I just think one of them is very boring.
Right. So, Tex, what's
You
your
son
thoughts
of a-
on Zombie 2?
I had to do it.
I mean, I like it okay. I mean, I can't give you a real good judgment because I've never, unfortunately, seen it all the way through. It's one of those that I've always wanted to kind of watch. But the stuff that I've seen, I mean, of course, I've seen, you know, the eye splinter thing, you know, and the shark, and, you know, I mean, I've seen a good portion of it. It's not as bad. My thing is that for years when I was younger, I didn't, you know, I'd always, some kids would say, oh man, there's this great movie you should watch called Gates of Hell, or this and that. And this is before, you know, we really started, you know, at least people that I knew started really getting into like Italian horror and things like that. And I remember watching with my ex-wife, before, this was when we first met, I'd gone to the video store and I think I got was it Virgin of the Living Dead, something. We, you know,
Just Frank is Virgin Among the Living Dead. My apologies, sir.
yeah. Well, so anyway, we started watching this movie, and I remember seeing some of Gates of Hell, and I hadn't seen, you know, all of it because I would get really bored because I hated the dubbing. So we started to watch this Virgin Among the Living Dead or whatever. We watched, like, I swear, probably a half hour, and we're just sitting there going, okay. Then we like turned it off, you know, and so I don't know. I was really put off by like a lot of stuff for years, and then finally I started, you know, hearing about, reading about more about Fulci and all these people, and I'm like, okay, I have to check some of these out. But there, is a long list of things that I, haven't seen in their entirety that I need to like go back to. But I love, New York Ripper, and Don't Torture a Duckling is one of my all-time favorites. I love that. So, it's just, seeing how like you guys are all enthused by it and stuff too has made me like, oh man, I've got to check out Bruno Mattei. I've got to check out this. I mean,
wait. That might have been unfair to do to you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying that as a name, but I'm just saying that for the most part though, I might have even seen some movies that I didn't know who they were by at the time or whatever. Also, I mean, like I remember seeing the Beyond in full, and I thought, holy shit, this is great. But I never really paid attention to like who it was by or anything like that at the time when I saw that, So
It's funny because the chat was going crazy over the Beyond about, I don't know, an hour ago.
Yeah.
Right.
The Beyond is one of those films that you can't do a versus on because you're going to steamroll over anything you put it up against.
Yeah, that's my favorite Fulci film.
And it's a deeply imperfect film, right? So the spiders are crappy as shit, right? Right? But you know what? Right. Doesn't matter.
It just works, doesn't it? Even the hulkiness of the effects.
It's the atmosphere, it's the music, it's the approach, it's how steady the communication is, right? Like every scene makes sense where it is. Everything seems right where it needs to be. Beyond may be his masterpiece. It's not as my favorite Fulci film, but it may be his masterpiece.
Yeah.
It used to be my number one, Fulci, but I think Zombie's gone. Zombie 2's gone above it. Okay. A lot of people say City of Living Dead. For me, my two favorite Fulcis is House by the Cemetery and Don't Torture a Duckling. They're my two standouts, but I love them all. I love all the ones we mentioned. New York Ripper, which we did the verses on. Yeah. I was going to ask Alpha Romero what he thinks of Hell of the Living Dead, the Bruno Mattei film. Have you seen that one?
I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, it's so entertaining. I love it.
That's one of those shits just because it's entertaining. That's all.
Yeah,
like
it's sacrilege to say it's better than Dawn, but I actually
no. I mean, it's a direct ripoff of Dawn. I mean, down to where they use the Goblin score. They got the guys in the SWAT uniforms with the little tiny little hats, and it's fun. Like it's just a good fun zombie movie, and that's what I prefer most of the time. Like a lot of my favorite zombie movies are movies that people would probably consider bad zombie movies, like that, or Nightmare City is one that people always are like, oh, what a terrible movie, and I'm just like, I fucking love that movie.
Even though Lindsay will say it's not a zombie film, but
it's structured like a zombie movie. It's a zombie movie, but you know what? That movie again borrows heavily from Zombie 2. It's like replace a boat with a plane and go.
Yeah.
Much. I even like the stuff like Zombie Holocaust and really low barrel stuff. But
you know what?
Enjoyment out of that.
Italian zombie cinema is much like that container of Chinese food in the back of your refrigerator. You don't know.
It's a really good way to put it.
It might be gone, but the air fryer can do some amazing stuff. So you're eyeing it going, let's give it a try. I'm either going to get really sick or this is going to be amazing. And in my experience, it always ends up amazing. So,
really you've got the sequels to Zombie 2 as well. You've got Zombie 3, Zombie 4, Zombie 5.
I actually really enjoy Zombie 3.
Yeah.
Like I've always been
a fan.
It's goofy, the flying zombie head coming out of the fridge, but I'm just like, I'm there for it. I don't know.
And that was partly Fulci as well, wasn't it? I think the two of them in both.
It was It was the mega powers coming together for that one.
Well, by accident, by sheer accident. Like one guy gets sick and was getting ripped off for money, so he left.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on the bottom, though,
4 and 5, though.
Everybody on the bottom, would y'all consider this like Dawn of the Dead your favorite zombie film? Or
Dawn of the Dead's the greatest movie ever made to me. So
yeah.
I mean,
I know that.
See, I hear that a lot. I mean, I do hear that a lot.
Pretty much in like my top 5 horror films. I mean, Texas Chainsaw is number 1. Hellraiser is number 2 and Dawn's number 3, but that switches, sometimes between 2 and 3.
Right.
But it's great that we can have such different opinions,
What about you, CK?
I'm not a person that ranks shit. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it's my favorite, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's up there. Like I've watched Day of the Dead a lot.
Right.
Back in the day. That's the one I probably watched the most. Night of the Living Dead, I love. I mean, it would be between probably those 3.
Okay.
Night, Dawn, and Day.
Are you guys, obviously Alpha Romero probably is, but are you guys fans of what was to come after, Land of the Dead and Survival of the Dead and all them?
I liked Land. I wanted to love Land when it came out, and I really tried to love Land of the Dead, but I do like it. There's good to it.
I would
Diary.
co-sign everything you just said. Everything you said is perfect.
There you go.
Other movies have used the same ideas better since, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, like and Diary of the Dead, kind of the same thing. Like first time I saw Diary, I really, really liked it, but the more I watched it, the less I've liked it. But I also see that it was where George was wanting to go and with Diary, and kind of he was a little bit ahead of his time. Whereas like now it's like back then when I first saw it, it's like, oh, seriously, you expect people to pull out a camera as soon as they see a zombie attack? And nowadays, I mean, that's what you see. It's like a house catches on fire and people are just like, let me grab my phone.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah.
So it's flawed, but it's not the worst thing ever. But Survival of the Dead, I think George was just kind of just happy to be there at that point. He was just like, it is what it is. I'm just happy to be making another movie. But
it's a piece of shit.
I've only seen it once, and I've got no desire.
They couldn't sell them for $1 at the Dollar Tree, man.
Hey,
bad.
Don't fuck with the Dollar Tree. There's a film called Odd Family, which is a zombie movie that borrows a lot of concepts from Land of the Dead, but tells an amazing story with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think that Land of the Dead set up another film for success. That's the most charitable way to look at it. The other two, yeah, I'm never going to watch them again. I'll say that. I did see Diary in the theater as a midnight showing, and the audience was pissed off. And that was more amusing than the movie to me because they were. It's very rare that I've seen people angry. I mean, Battlefield Earth level angry, Skinamarink level angry movie theater audiences. And so that was pretty funny. But other than that, I didn't enjoy the film. And Survival, when I eventually saw it on VHS or DVD, whichever it was, whatever the time period was there, did absolutely nothing for me. I think it's fair to say that's probably true of everyone on the planet that's seen it.
It's melatonin on a disc.
Right.
But believe it or not, it has got its fans.
Yeah, I do know people that do enjoy Survival of the Dead. And I think just there's a movie that came out in 2017 I talk about sometimes called The Dead Don't Die. Jim Jarmusch did.
Yeah, that's amazing.
A lot of people don't like it. That's one of my favorite zombie movies that's come out in the past 10 years. But I think that's the type of movie George wanted to make, but his sense of humor or whatever just didn't translate to that. But I think it's fucking hilarious. But
how long have we gone since Train to Busan? Has it been 10 years?
Almost, I think.
Right
Has it been
at
that long?
10.
16 maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that pound per pound, Train to Busan may be the best zombie film ever made. So, I mean, the future still looks bright. We just probably are not getting it from America. Big surprise, right? I'm hoping that people take the baton from people like George Romero and Lucio Fulci and do something new and fun and fresh. Also, another film that always gets missed in this, because I always make a point to mention it because no one does. If you love zombie films, check out Wilson Yip's Biozombie. It's a Hong Kong zombie film set in a mall, but it's amazing and it's not at all what you think it is.
I've heard of it. I've never seen that one.
If do yourself a favor, you're going to love it. And they're maybe the best characters in zombie film history. Everyone's amazing. Like, not just
how old is this? When did this come out?
Early 2000s.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe
Yeah,
late
I've
99,
just
somewhere in
never
there.
checked it out.
Wilson Yip was a Hong Kong he is still a Hong Kong director, but he made a bunch of horror films, and then he went on to just straight comedy in Hong Kong. But he had a very specific film language that he used, and it was way before its time. I always thought he would be the best choice to make a Resident Evil film, not George Romero actually, or the crap we actually got. because he kind of he's so breezy and fun. It's a great film. Check out Biozombie, please, people.
I urge people to check out White Zombie, man. I mean, it might not be for everybody, but I would say that's one that nobody ever talks about, really, man. Like
I could do an hour and a half with you on White Zombie. I love that movie. But I Walk with a Zombie, the Val Lewton.
43.
Yeah, fucking amazing. I think there is a lot of great, if we're going to use zombie as a pre Night of the Living Dead category, there's a lot of great films that dealt with kind of the xenophobia of the moment and fear of other religions and other people. And yeah, it hasn't aged well if you're going to get your ultra sensitive glasses on, but if you're willing to take it for what it is, there's some great work out there. Stop being offended.
Yeah.
Right. What would you guys regard the Demons films, the zombie films?
Same thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah, kind of.
Pretty much.
That
Evil
Dead.
Evil Dead, yeah.
I had a blank. Never mind. It'll come to me in a minute. Fucking old age, man.
No, I love the Demons. That's the reason I brought it up. I love the Demons films.
Yeah,
I actually prefer the second one over the first.
Man, those 4Ks of the Demons film. Uncle Bill's talking about. He got those recently. Those are amazing.
Are those different than the other Synapse?
No, it's the they're re-releasing like the standard editions.
Okay.
But the transfers on those are insane.
Yeah, the Arrow one is probably off the same transfer. I would imagine.
That's the ones I have. The Demons 1 and 2.
Look amazing. Like I don't know what they did, but yeah, those are unreal.
One I recently saw that we did on the Dead End Drive-In. That I Drink Your Blood. Y'all seen that?
Yeah.
I love I Drink Your Blood.
Lynn Lowry, yeah.
I consider that a zombie film. I mean,
Kinda, yeah. Rabies, you know.
Yeah.
It pairs well with the Crazies.
Yeah,
it does actually.
In that case, either the original or the remake, because I think that remake is actually fine. We like to piss on the remake era, but there was some stuff that was out kind of okay. Then there was The Fog.
I was talking about the Maniac remake the other night. That's one that I thought was pretty good. What are you guys' thoughts on the Maniac remake with Elijah Wood?
I've never seen it.
Yeah. Really,
you never seen it?
It's actually good, man.
I still need to see that one.
I'm not an Elijah Wood guy, so
you don't see him through the whole movie.
Might be the perfect movie for him.
That's what I thought.
He's not in the movie at all.
He's in a mirror a few times. That's it.
It'll surprise you. He'll surprise you in that one.
I mean, when it got announced that he was going to be in it and the role he plays, I was like, how the hell's that going to work? But he pulls it off, man. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hollywood doesn't have actors like Joe Spinella anymore, so it doesn't. You know, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, yeah. There's that as well. Yeah.
No, that's a good film. The thing about the remake cycle, I think, if they had been spaced out, we wouldn't have been so cynical about it. And the lows are very low, by the way. Like the bad remakes are very bad, like The Fog. But really, it was just because that was all we were getting was remakes. You know, and Paranormal Activity and Saw sequels. That was what the horror genre felt like for what, 6 years, 7 years, and I think we all just got like exhausted of it very quickly.
So yeah, what did we learn here today? That Zombie 2 is the better film, or
you should do like a poll in the chat there.
Yeah,
see what everybody.
I see people like going off in here. Like
I thought at one point it was kind of close.
Dawn for the win, you know.
I think what we've learned is that they're two very different types of films, even though they're both technically zombie movies.
Yeah.
They're two very different types of. They're really
apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges. There you go.
Yeah.
What we should do is find two objectively bad films and do a versus on them, because then we can just go full wild.
Yeah.
Have you guys got any ideas for a future stream? And of course, you'll all be welcome again. Maybe a versus. Because me and Dirk kind of chuck ideas around, but I can't think of anyone off.
We've spread these versus streams out. I mean, this is the third one we've done in what, like a year or some shit.
Oh, wow. Okay. I can get back with you. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, we'd have to think about it. I think.
Yeah.
But Cemetery Man's being mentioned a lot, and that's a film that surprised me, man, because I was fairly new to that, and I actually prefer that over Evil Dead 2.
Me
which
too.
is
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of people
No,
call
that's
me
not even a
crazy.
question.
That would be an
That's
interesting one, actually.
amazing film. What would you put up against Cemetery Man? Though?
Evil Dead
Because it'd
2,
be
probably.
hard.
Evil Dead 2, yeah.
Ooh, that would
see, but-
divide people, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, like, I love my Del Morte Del More, but it's gonna lose in that battle, right? Because people are not gonna get over their love of Evil Dead 2.
Well, I think it's kind of the same as this one. I think Dawn is a beloved horror film, especially in the States, whereas Zombie is more of a cult following in the US.
Yeah, but anecdotally, I'll tell you, because without getting into it, like, I do have some unpopular opinions, and
No.
what's crazy is that over the time I've been online, the amount of people who've come to me and said, I'll never say publicly, but I actually agree with you about a film that begins with A and ends with an S, is astounding. There is a ton of people out there who have this opinion, but no one will say it aloud because there's a film orthodoxy. And vice versa. I'm a huge fan of a number of this second sequel in that same series that no one seems to like except a handful of us. But like, it's a larger group. But a lot of people just won't speak up when they have an opinion that's outside of the mainstream codified. This movie rules. This one sucks.
It's critical thinking, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day,
but it's
you
like,
gotta have an opinion. Like, shit,
I
don't
can't
give a
control.
fuck.
I can't control how I feel about a movie, not any more than I control how you feel
Yeah.
about a movie. The
Yeah.
great thing about what we're doing here is we're exploring what works for you. Maybe on a second watch of Dawn of the Dead in, I don't know, 20 years or so. I've seen it more than twice. I'm kidding. But maybe I'll see what you guys say. Or maybe you guys will see some of the cracks and maybe go, I still love it, but I get what he's saying. That's the beauty of having a community to discuss this stuff.
I will say that there's the saying that's like the two most unqualified people to critique anything are people that are too far away from something or too close to something. I'm probably a little too close to Dawn of the Dead because I've seen, like I said, I've seen that movie hundreds of times to the point where like I know it front to back. I know everything is from every scene and all that. So
all the backstory, all the
it
does make a difference. You know everything about something. Like,
I think you give some good arguments, though.
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah, and I probably will when I next go back to it. You know, rewatch this stream again and see if like I see anything different. You know, hopefully it's one I've just always wanted to love.
I do own the damn.
Always wanted to love.
So I mean, you know,
I have the laserdisc somewhere.
Well, there's multiple versions you can watch, so you can pick the one you like. You can pick the Argento. I personally like the director's cut the best. It's longer, it's a little slower, but that's the one that I grew up on. That's the one that I first saw when I first saw the movie on IFC in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, that was the version that they played. And that's the version I recorded on a VHS tape, and that's the version that I watched over and over and over again. So
is there a different ending to that than the Argento cut? Because it's I mentioned earlier, it's so abrupt.
Well, the Argento cut, it ends with the helicopter flying off. It's like, how much gas do we have? Not much. Okay, and then they fly off, and then it just goes to a black credit screen. Whereas in the U.S. versions, either the U.S. theatrical cut or the Cannes cut, director's cut, whatever you want to call it, it ends with a montage of the silly mall music playing, and then it's showing the zombies like kind of walking through the mall again, taking over the mall again. Yeah, and it's like a montage that ends.
I gotta ask this question though. So, like, one thing we didn't even mention, like the one guy sticking his arm, like, what is the deal with that shit? The sombrero guy, and he's got to get his he's got to check his blood pressure. Like, when all the motherfuckers are coming.
Goofy shit they threw in there.
High blood pressure is a serious thing that people deal with on a daily basis, Dirk, and I don't think we should make light of it. I think some people, and when the world's coming to an end, how often do you get a chance to check your blood pressure? So,
okay. I just wondered if there was.
It was an excuse to do a gag. It was an excuse to do a gag, I'm sure.
Okay.
But what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to look back to the 70s and to understand that, like, it was the era of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. Their entertainment was just in a different place. Something as controlled as The Dark and the Wicked is today with its tone was not the norm in 1975. It just wasn't.
Yeah, and it was, a disco era. It was flashy colors, and it was...
They had a gun store in the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, that's Pennsylvania.
Which that gun store was actually not actually in the mall. It was shot on in a different location. But for the sake of the story, there's a gun store in the mall.
There you go.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate everybody coming on, man. It's been a good, healthy debate. Comparison of video.
Wild,
Yeah,
man.
thanks for letting me hop on. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, man.
No
Anytime.
worries.
But yeah, what do you got coming up, Lauren, on Visitor by Voices? I got everybody's channel in the description. I'll put yours in there too, Romero.
Appreciate it.
So the channel Stone Gassman's video about the later part of the Psycho franchise hit yesterday at 6 p.m. So that's fresh up there. Okay. There is a slew of other shows coming up. My next autopsy isn't until the end of August, and I'm attacking one of my all-time favorite films. So that should be a lot of fun for people. That's the Great Indians. Postmodern slasher Game Over, the great.
Oh man, I love that film.
Yeah, it's in my opinion the best slasher film ever made, simply because it does something with the genre that's pretty awesome. And you want to talk about great performances, and you want to talk about a character arc, that's an indisputable classic. Other than that, there's 7 rotating shows. There will be by the end of August on the channel. So there's every week there's something for you guys. Come on over. No cookies, but lots of entertainment.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna stress, like, y'all got to sub to everybody that's on here, so
absolutely,
check out their stuff, man. What you got coming up, Romero? Alpha Romero?
I actually had somebody ask me, "Was like, are you related to George Romero?" I'm like, nah. So what do I got? Going live tonight. I'm doing kind of like a replay of an interview that I did with Thematic, who's a buddy of mine. He came on, but his audio was so screwed up that on our live stream that he went back and fixed the audio. So I'm going to put that up. And then next week, I'm going to have Lawrence DeVincent on, who is a Romero historian and collector. And we're going to be looking at some of his collection because, I mean, you want to talk about a Romero collection. This guy has everything down to props used for movies to, I mean, just name it. This dude's got a friggin' vault full of stuff. So I'm going to have him on next week. And then I think the week after that, I think I'm going to get, we're going to have Uncle Bill on. We're going to talk about the new Bruiser 4K from Indicator, among other things. So.
Okay, cool.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, man. What you got coming on Dead Pit, CK?
We've always got reviews up every week.
Yeah.
I think the next show that we're doing is tonight at 10.
Right.
Slashback show. We're doing 80 slashers that we have never reviewed before. So there's a lot of them. But yeah, the Slayer tonight from 1982 and Offerings from 1989.
Oh man, the Slayer's so underrated.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd never seen that one before. First time watch.
Before Nightmare on Elm Street as well, which is
Yeah, there's some good stuff in that one.
Oh yeah, man. What you got going on, Tex?
Well, I have Gizmo's stream in about 3 hours. I'll be on there discussing, five movies that I've watched, and then everybody gets to choose, my next 5. And then after that, I'm going to be hanging with Sean, the Cinephile World Order, when we're going to do a double bill watch stream tonight for Kill Bill 1 and 2.
Oh,
and,
shit.
Yeah. So I got a full day today. So, CK, I just wanted to say, brother, it was an honor to be on here with you finally to do something, and it wasn't about Terror on Tour,
Well, we could talk about Terror on Tour sometime. We might do a versus show.
Well, yeah, maybe so.
Terror
but
on
Uncle
Tour
Bill
versus Final Exam or something like that.
But right,
I don't mind Final Exam. That'd be a good versus to me.
But Uncle Bill had something to say real quick. What the hell? So there we go.
Congrats on the 10,000 subs as well, CK.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, you guys really deserve everything you get. And I think Lornes recently hit 1,000 as well.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Congrats,
so
guys.
all these guys.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's everyone on the channel. It's not just me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I appreciate everybody coming on, man. It's been great. Been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Kind of
Thanks for asking me.
But yeah,
so
man,
defend my baby. So
yeah. I'm glad to get you on, man, because it was kind of.
I know y'all
Yeah.
I was beating the shit out of that fucking movie, and I was just like, "Oh my god, somebody stand up!"
I
say
could
something."
see you in the comments. I was thinking, I could see.
Yeah, I've
your
seen the comments too. I was like, oh shit. Okay.
But no, you come on and give a good, good argument, man, for everyone.
The passion's there, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
I was about to wave the white flag, and then when I saw Alpha, and I was like, "Oh man, he needs to come up here." So that's why I was like, "Alpha, we you need to come up here."
But yeah, man, I guess we'll get up out of here, man. We've had, I think, everybody in the chat. Sorry I couldn't read it. It's just, I kind of see why now. Like, like it's kind of hard to manage sometimes. but yeah, y'all have a good rest of your weekend and stay safe out there.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Have a good one, guys.
See you, everybody.
Have a good one.